Hey everyone, Jack here. Today's video, I usually actually don't talk about personal topics in my personal life, and I'm not going to for a long time here, but I think it's important to actually start with the foundation. In case anyone's wondering, I'm traveling in Miami. It's beautiful here, and today is December 1st, and 10 years ago today, I lost someone in my life who's very important to me. And it certainly changed my life. It was a hard time when it happened, but it certainly has given me perspective. And for that reason, I wanted to make a video because in my program, I actually talk to students a lot about perspective. When it comes to college planning, students can get really overwhelmed. I know what it's like to be a high school junior, or a high school sophomore, or a high school senior. It can get stressful. There's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of time spent on thinking about college and planning for college and doing everything that high school entails. There's a lot. And so, a lot of these videos I go into the nuances of college planning and talking about how early decision can be a cheat code and how to structure the opening sentence of a college essay, and how to effectively study for the SAT versus the ACT. And these are in the weeds type tips, and those have their time and place. But especially on a day like today for me, as I kind of take a step back, as I always do on December 1st every year, I figured I wanted to make this video to talk about kind of big picture mindset approaches that, like I said, I do try to bring to each of my students. I think it's important that high schoolers have an understanding of where college planning fits in their world. And at the end of the day, any student who's even thinking about college planning is already in a very, very formidable, desirable position in life. And the fact that a student is even in the United States is honestly fairly fortunate. The fact that a student is considering going to higher education is very fortunate. And so I typically teach these kind of mindset approaches to my students because I think it puts things in perspective. When they then get stressed and bogged down and are in the weeds, it can allow them to go, I appreciate where I am. And I think if there's anything that 10 years ago taught me in the last 10 years, it's, I was 21 years old when I lost someone who was very important to me, and it shocked my world. And at that time, when I was 21, I didn't really have that appreciation mindset. To be honest, I kind of felt like I was on top of the world and nothing could go wrong. And that definitely made me realize that it's important to appreciate the moment, because you truly never know what's going to happen in life. So, with that, time to get a little actionable here, because you know how I like to make these videos. I don't want to just talk about all this high-level stuff and then close the video. I want to give you some action. So here's one tip if you're a parent of a high schooler that you can take back to your high schooler today to help them perhaps with that kind of bigger picture appreciation mindset. I will preface, this does not work for every student, nor does it have to. But it's just one tool that I have actually used every day for the last 10 years to help with my mindset. And many, dozens and dozens and dozens of my students have actually taken this tip, harnessed it, and told me how much it's helped them. For me, this approach is actually what I call the 5-20 approach. I'll get into that in a second, what that means. But the background is 10 years ago, I was on a life-changing program called Semester at Sea. I was studying abroad. I was a junior in college. And pretty quickly I realized, wow, the semester is going by so fast. I want to appreciate every day that goes by here because I don't want it to end. And so classes on the ship ended at 5:10 every day, I think. And I wanted to be able to make it to the top deck of the ship to look out onto the Atlantic Ocean and truly just have this moment of, there's another day, right? So, took my watch, It was actually a different watch than this, but very similar. Set the alarm to 5:20, and every day I would just go up, and when it went off, I would take 3 seconds, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, whatever it ended up being, and just taking a breath. And would think about appreciating the moment. And what that did for me was allow me to, no matter what my day had been like or was in the future, it allowed me to at least have a 3-second window minimum where I could be present. Now, as a 21-year-old, I didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't realize how helpful this was, but it really became a profound tradition for me on the last month of the ship. And actually, more and more students would watch me do this, and by the end, I think we had 20, 30 students who were joining me as we all kind of got nostalgic. And so, to bring this back to, you, likely the high schooler, likely the parent of a high schooler watching this, but maybe you're a high schooler watching this. And it might help. It might not, but it might help to embrace this kind of 520 methodology of appreciating the moment. Now, you don't have to have it be the time of 5:20. It can be any time of the day. Or you don't even have to have it be a time of the day. It can be whenever you walk out the front door of your house every day, take a second. Or whenever you park your car in the high school student parking lot, you take a second. Or right the 5 seconds before kickoff to your soccer game. Whatever it is, though, if there's kind of a mental trigger that says, this is my time to just stop and take it in, I think it's going to do several things. The first is, of course, you'll be more present moment oriented. Whatever you are doing, you will feel like you're much more there and present. I still struggle with this to this day when my mind goes off and explores different avenues and I realize, the last several hours, I haven't really been here. Been thinking about other things, right? It kind of brings you back. But second, I think this is probably the most important factor for my high schoolers, is having a moment every day to appreciate that moment will put things like college planning in perspective. I did not have that perspective when I was 17 years old. I just didn't, right? It seemed like, college was a given. My parents went to college, I'm gonna go to college. But if I had had that perspective, I think it would have taken a lot of the stresses about all of the steps and just made me say, okay, in the grand scheme of life, these are really good problems to have. The fact that I'm worried about my college visits, the fact that I'm worried about, am I gonna get a 32 or 33 on my ACT? These are good problems to have, right? And so I think a lot of my students who I have taught about this, I've given these tips to students in my program. I've taught them about kind of my approaches to mindset. I think if you asked my students, they would say that, yes, the nitty-gritty in the weeds tips and advice are tremendously helpful that I give them for multiple years. How to fill out the activities section in the Common App. But my guess is if you asked my most successful students who enjoyed the process the most, who had the most fun, and by the way, who as a byproduct probably got into some pretty amazing colleges, they'll tell you that tips like this mindset approach, being able to live presently, goes a long way. As a high schooler, I've just got to tell you, you've only got 4 years of high school. Ever. They will be gone. You will not be able to go back. And even if you're like, well, Jack, I can't wait to leave high school, there's still something kind of nostalgic when you realize that only 4 years. Right? And I think it's important to not let those 4 years just completely pass you by. And instead say, this is a time in my life that will not happen again. And if you're a parent of a high schooler, I think it's important for you to realize that your child will only be in high school one time for 4 years. And then they will move on. If that's to college, they'll move on to college. If it's elsewhere, they'll move on elsewhere. But this time that you have with your high schooler in the house, it is limited at this point if you're watching this and you have a high schooler, right? So I think just having this kind of overall mindset approach might really help not just high schoolers, but actually maybe it'll help you, the parent of a high schooler, as well. Appreciate those kind of slightly more difficult times, those more stressful times, and really just take a step back and say, in general, these are actually good problems, because you know what it means? It means my high schooler is still here in the house. I've got them tonight, sitting at the dinner table. I'm gonna ask them how life's going. So I hope that helps. A little bit of a unique video, a little bit unusual for me to, kind of dive into my reasoning behind it and some of my personal life, but I do think it's appropriate, especially on a day like today. I hope this helped. If you want to watch any more of these, feel free to go into the channel. I enjoy making these, so hopefully I'll continue to do so. Have a good, thoughtful, present-oriented day. Cheers.